Pharrell Williams is one of the most successful artists, producers, and novelty hat wearers in the music industry. So obviously we gotta talk about how he spends all that cash. Pharrell Williams has amassed a sizable fortune of $250 million over decades in the business. What's even more sizable than his bank account is his reputation as a man of incredible style. So there's no way his homes could get away with not being as over the top as possible. Don't worry, you're not gonna be disappointed. He's got several luxury homes in California. For instance, we've got the slender smart home that may not look super fancy, but it is decked out with amenities. The smart home stretches out over 6,100 square feet. It has 5 bedrooms and 5.5 bathrooms. As far as those epic amenities I told you about go, the home starts out with a 70-foot infinity pool. He's also a skate enthusiast. His home has its very own skate park. That's not quite as cool as Jack Black skating through his home park with Tony Hawk, but you know what could be. If that wasn't enough, the home also features multiple lounges which take in 360-degree views of the surrounding city and mountains. He managed to sell this place for $9.2 million. Skating in Pharrell's skate park could definitely be worth like $10 million. His grander home lies in Beverly Hills. The perfectly manicured home with several pools and artificial rock walkways kinda looks like a really fancy golf course that just so happens to have a house built on it. The property stretches out over 17,245 square feet. It also features 10 bedrooms and 11 bathrooms. This is actually a home that's definitely for car lovers. It has a 200-foot driveway that is definitely enough to hold even Pharrell's impressive collection. If that wasn't enough, the garage reportedly holds over 30 cars. As cool as that is, it doesn't really compare to having your own skate park, so that one's still my favorite for sure. Despite the fact that this home served him and his family well over the years, he did prepare to step away from the place for $17 million. Funnily enough, he actually purchased this home from an even more legendary icon, Tyler Perry, who purchased the home for $15.6 million. What's crazy about this home is the rumor that went along with it. The tall tale goes that even though Tyler Perry added this beauty to his real estate portfolio for millions of dollars, he actually never stayed a night in the Beverly Hills pad. He just bought it, kept it for several years, and then sold it for a big chunk of change. I don't know if that's the weirdest thing I've ever heard or the most baller thing I've ever heard. It's definitely somewhere in the middle for sure. Anyone who is thinking that Pharrell might be one of those artists with a surprisingly conservative car collection is about to be blown away. His collection is worth over $2 million, and that's only counting one car. That would be his super rare Ferrari Enzo. This legendary car was reportedly picked up by Pharrell for over $2 million, but it turns out even that was a deal. They actually go for nearly double with a typical price of $3.8 million today. Even if that was the beginning and the end of his car collection, it would still be impressive. That's not even his most impressive ride. For instance, we have his intense Mercedes SLR McLaren. This baby is also worth over $3 million, though looking at it, that price looks like a deal as well. Seriously, this car looks like it's going to transform into Bumblebee and help Optimus Prime fight the Decepticons. That kind of feature would be at least worth $9 million. His most expensive ride is his Porsche 550 Spider. This one's worth $3.5 million. This one looks like some kind of old-fashioned racing car. I would pay so much money to see Pharrell start in his very own old-timey Fast and Furious franchise with this car. This movie would make billions. His other rides are nice, but not worth millions of dollars nice. The first is the nicest car in many other other garages it's in, the Rolls-Royce Phantom. While its worth of $455,000 is impressive, it's still one of the cheapest in his collection. What, it's not even worth $500,000? Pathetic. As far as normal people cars go, he has a GMC Yukon Hybrid that's only worth about 64 grand. I guess everyone needs cars for just riding around in. When you think of Pharrell Williams, you immediately think of him wearing that iconic hat. You know the one, it kind of looks like he's a really fancy cowboy. Well, you might think that he got this hat because it would give him his own uniquely iconic style, which would be 100% mission accomplished, but the hat actually has a lot more symbolism and history than you might think. For starters, if you look at the band, the world's famous Supreme Team, you'll see a very familiar looking hat. This band from the 70s and 80s was a big influence on Pharrell's style, his music, and his overall vibe that the hat represents. When it came time for Pharrell's own hat, he got his from one of the greatest designers of all time. That would be the one and only Vivienne West. She's a fashion icon, known for revolutionizing the punk movement and working with the Sex Pistols. This hat actually came from her autumn-winter 1982-83 collection called Buffalo Girls. She took inspiration from Peruvian women who wore a hat that looks very familiar indeed. Pharrell's hat isn't just a callback to these iconic styles, but a callback to their rebellious vibes. He has always said that he was on the side of the rebels and that his iconic hat was a showing of solidarity with the rebels of the past. These hats are known as pieces of fashion history. They typically range in price from around $200 to over $400. That has got to be the best deal anyone has ever gotten for such an iconic look since Michael Myers picked himself up a William Shatner mask for $1.98. He went on to pick up several of these hats, and ones with a similar and slightly less dramatic design. My guess is that he spent at least a few grand on one of the most famous hat collections of all time. While he purchased several of these hats, something actually incredible happened just because he wore them so well. They skyrocketed in value. For instance, he put one of his hats up for auction for charity, and it went for a huge profit. Titled the Pharrell Williams Mountain Hat, it attracted a bid of $10,500 immediately. The bidding war then continued until it was up for over 4 times that amount. Finally, it sold for $44,000. Turns out the buyer is even stranger than you'd think. It was actually Arby's. You know, the fast food franchise that sells huge roast beef sandwiches? They dropped $44K on this beauty. They even had the screenshots to back it up. It was apparently a reference to the original Arby's sign, which featured a super tall Panama hat that looked just like the Pharrell hat. I guess Arby's is a rebel too? When it came time for Pharrell Williams to settle down with his longtime partner, he obviously had to do it in style. And if you know anything about Hollywood weddings, you know that style equals money. While he didn't get invited to the wedding, by all accounts, it was likely a few $1,000,000. This is a celebrity wedding after all. While the ceremony itself was kept private, the reception was a completely different story. It was actually held on a luxury yacht that Williams chartered for the happiest day of his life. That would be the 122-foot Never Say Never. He reportedly had to drop over $112,000 to charter this beauty for a week. One look at this luxurious party base on the water and you can see why it costs so much. It's got a hot tub, lush interiors, and a ride so smooth that I bet it barely bumps even at its top speed of 30 knots. Add to that how much he likely spent on catering staff and more, and you'll likely be looking at least 300 grand on this reception by itself. Knowing Pharrell's lifestyle like I do, I'm sure that's a conservative estimate, though his friendships did save him some money. It also featured featured not only stars like Usher and Busta Rhymes in attendance, but as performers as well. Getting the two of them to perform, I'm assuming for free, was a value of several million just by itself. Honestly, I think Pharrell needs to teach a masterclass to other celebrities on how to spend money in style.